The View hosts have got themselves into hot water again after they did the very thing they purport to be against, undermining women's success. Joy Behar stunned viewers when she said Donald Trump's press secretary, 27-year-old Karoline Leavitt, only secured her position because of her good looks.
I think she's probably been put in there because, according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is.
I want to be clear, though. It's not her first job. It was her first press briefing. She worked in the previous Trump administration.
The comment was bizarre, especially coming from Joy Behar, who is as woke as they come and positions herself as a champion of feminism. This online commentator said, disgusting Joy Behar of The View accuses Karoline Leavitt of being hired only because Donald Trump thought she was.
The fallout from The View's latest controversy is unfolding into yet another harsh lesson in what happens when hosts underestimate their guests. This time, the target was Karoline Leavitt, a young, unapologetically conservative political strategist making waves in the media. It all began when Joy Behar, with her trademark smugness, dismissed Leavitt as incapable, insinuating that her success was merely due to her looks. From the moment Behar spoke, it was clear The View had crossed the line again. But Leavitt wasn't about to let the insult slide. Rather than brushing it off, she fired back with precision, dismantling Behar's condescending remarks and exposing the hypocrisy at the core of The View's so-called feminist narrative.
The fact that Democrats have been labeling President Trump a to democracy for the better half of 10 years. Let's talk about how they have compared him to one of the worst mass in the history of the world, and that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden weaponized the court system and the justice system in this country against Donald Trump in an attempt to imprison him. He sat through a courthouse for 7 weeks this past year, and the Democrats were hoping he would go to jail for it. That is real political that has led to 2 heinous attempts on President Trump's life that, by the grace of God, he was able to escape, and he is here with us today. So yes, President Trump knows a little bit about political because he's experienced it himself. And talking about the tragic realities of war that Liz Cheney and her father, Dick Cheney, have got this country into is not political. It's talking about the reality of the foreign conflicts that the Washington, D.C. establishment have sold out young Americans to.
Rather than cowering in the face of predictable elitist snark, Karoline Leavitt did what many before her had failed to do. She fought back. And she did so with intelligence, poise, and, most importantly, facts. From the moment Joy Behar made her offhand jab, Leavitt made it abundantly clear that her success had nothing to do with her appearance and everything to do with years of hard work, deep political knowledge, and a sharp ability to communicate, traits that clearly made her a serious threat to The View's panel of self-proclaimed intellectuals. Leavitt wasted no time in calling out the absurdity of reducing a woman's accomplishments to her looks, especially coming from a show that constantly preaches about empowering women. The hypocrisy was glaring. The View prides itself on lifting women up, yet the moment a woman dares to challenge their left-wing ideology, they demean her in the very way they claim to oppose. The irony was impossible to ignore, and viewers saw right through it.
His opponents are saying to this very day the same rhetoric that led to those 2 attempts. The second attempted on President Trump's life echoed the sentiment that President Trump is a democracy. And if you're a deranged lunatic and you're mentally ill, you will believe that lie, and yes, you will take political like we have seen in 2 instances against President Trump. Last week, Tim Walz and Kamala Harris said that everyone who showed up to President Trump's rally at Madison Square Garden was an That's despicable, dangerous, divisive rhetoric that is spewed by the Democrat Party every single day. And I am so sick and tired of the media pointing the finger at Donald Trump and saying that he is sowing division in this country. He is not. The media is for pushing hoaxes like the one that you all pushed today, and the Democrat Party is for pushing lies about him. But the good news is Americans don't buy it. And that's why today in 2024, President Trump is more popular than he has been since 2016, because people don't trust the...
Let's be honest. This wasn't just about Joy Behar's petty, offhand comment. It was part of a much larger pattern. Every time a young, articulate conservative woman rises to prominence, the media scrambles to discredit her. Whether it's Kayleigh McEnany, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, or Elise Stefanik, the strategy remains the same. If a woman doesn't fit into their ideological box, she's painted as unqualified, unserious, or nothing more than eye candy for male colleagues. And that's exactly what The View attempted here, lobbing a lazy, sexist attack and expecting it to land without consequence. But this time, it spectacularly backfired. Karoline Leavitt didn't just call out the double standard, she dismantled it. She made it crystal clear that her position wasn't handed to her on a silver platter. She earned it through hard work and real competition in the political arena. Unlike The View's hosts, who built their careers on talking over others and pandering to an audience that already agrees with them, Leavitt had to rise through the ranks under real scrutiny. And she didn't stop there. Leavitt made sure to highlight something the panel seemed to overlook. While they sit around gossiping and throwing petty insults, she is out there shaping political discourse and making an impact. She's not just another talking head on a daytime show. She's actively contributing to the larger conversation in meaningful ways. It didn't take long for the moment to go viral. Viewers across the political spectrum flooded social media, calling out The View for its blatant hypocrisy. Clips of Leavitt shutting down Behar's condescension spread like wildfire, with people from all walks of life agreeing. Not only was Behar's attack uncalled for, but it was also completely self-defeating. Even those who didn't necessarily align with Leavitt politically couldn't deny that she had exposed a major flaw in The View's approach to discussing women in politics.
Something yesterday that really pissed me off. And that was, she said, there will be no wokeness here.
Oh, yeah.
Let me explain something to you. Because without that wokeness, you might not have that job.
Yeah.
Because women were not invited to that table. Mm-hmm. Women were not invited to many tables in this nation. The reason we fought and busted our behinds to make sure that you didn't have to worry about this. And now to hear you talk about it and to hear anybody talk about the wokeness was put in place for a reason, because black people couldn't get into college.
The View loves to champion strong, independent women, but only if they conform to the network's narrow ideological boundaries. The moment a woman refuses to fall in line with their left-wing agenda, she's reduced to nothing more than a pretty face who doesn't belong at the table. And as if things couldn't get worse for The View, their attempt to embarrass Karoline Leavitt ended up backfiring spectacularly, making them look downright foolish. Joy Behar's snide comment didn't just come across as mean-spirited, it exposed a deep-seated insecurity within the panel. Unable to debate Leavitt on the merits of her political views, they resorted to petty personal attacks instead. Rather than engaging with her arguments, they fixated on her appearance, making themselves look weak and shallow in the process. This was a classic case of projection. Instead of acknowledging that a young conservative woman had earned her place through talent and merit, The View tried to spin a false narrative to fit their own worldview.
Because women could not get into the colleges they wanted to go to. This is all women. Yeah. See, this is not black, Asian women. This is all women. Women were not invited to this party. It was a man's world, and we busted our asses to make sure that this was a person's world. So please stop using that phrase to talk about, because you don't understand what you're saying. Mm-hmm. You're saying about yourself that, you know, hey, that's a terrible thing to be. It's not a terrible thing to be. That's why we fought. That's what we were fighting for, so that you could stand in that podium, so that Catherine Jean-Pierre could stand at that podium. So women of all kinds of colors and ilks, wherever they came from, whatever their belief system was, they had the opportunity to bust.
Behind the scenes, sources at ABC have reportedly admitted that the backlash was far worse than anticipated. Executives, already frustrated with The View's endless cycle of controversy, are beginning to question whether Joy Behar, who has been with the show for decades, might be doing more harm than good. While the show thrives on stirring debate, there's a fine line between being controversial and being outright problematic. This incident undoubtedly crossed that line in a way the network can no longer ignore. But what truly cemented this disaster was how Karoline Leavitt handled the situation. She didn't whine or play the victim. She seized the moment to prove exactly what she was made of. By standing her ground, speaking her truth, and demonstrating intelligence and composure, she showed everyone watching exactly why she belongs in the conversation. This wasn't just a win for Leavitt. It was a lesson for The View and anyone who underestimates conservative women in politics. The narrative the media has tried to spin for years, that these women are unqualified, shallow, or just there for show, was dismantled in a single unforgettable moment. The View may have thought they were silencing their guest, but instead, they amplified her voice louder than ever before.